What was I saying from the beginning? Who do we have with us today?
My name is Reed Miranda.
And how old are you?
I'm 23 years old.
And where are you from?
I'm from Elizabeth, New Jersey.
So this is the beginning of your redemption series.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I wanted, I want people to see what it's like, kind of what it takes to be in bodybuilding shape. I also want people to see, the good as well as the bad. And, how I managed to still stay in a pace where I'm still focused on the show. Because I know a lot, in life, a lot of people deal with struggles and they want to, quit, give up. But I have this set here, not only for the fans to see, the people to see, but for me to see as well, so that I can progress and develop more as a person.
Love that. So tell us a little bit about going back into your early teenage years. Who was your biggest influence?
My grandfather was definitely my biggest influence, without a doubt.
You would say your grandfather is the reason you are who you are today?
100%.
And how did you get into bodybuilding?
Bodybuilding specifically, I got into it with my brother, Roman Miranda, who is an IFBB pro. I always admired his work ethic when it came to training, and I really liked his physique. I saw the changes that he was able to make, and I was just admired by the discipline that he had. So that's something that I wanted to bring upon myself too. But what I want to say is that originally, going back to my grandfather, he was the one that started, training in general. So, because my brother and I were athletes, I played baseball, my brother played basketball, he'd always tell us, at least get a workout in every day. So we had a garage gym at the time. This was about maybe like 9 years ago. And if my grandfather came over, he would ask if we had already worked out. And if we said no, he would bring us into the garage and he would watch us do, our workouts. So I think that from that time that my grandfather helped my brother and I kind of push to exercise, I think that definitely stuck with me. And now the bodybuilding aspect, the competing aspect, that came from more so my brother.
So would you say that your grandfather being a huge influence in your life has definitely led you to getting into the sport of bodybuilding?
I would have to say no. My grandfather was big into baseball. So he wanted me to, be a baseball player. He wanted me to play for the major league. So, he was always on top of me. Not in a negative way. He just always wanted to make sure that I was doing everything I could to progress and, to eventually become a good baseball player. And speaking about that, I have my regrets because when he had passed, I had given up on baseball a few years later. It was a decision that, I made for myself, but in the back of my mind, I knew that my grandfather, he may have wanted me to continue playing baseball. So, but I've become aware enough to realize that my grandfather just wanted me to be happy. Not just to play baseball, but to be happy and to do something that I love, so.
So you set a goal for yourself.
Yes.
How do you go about obtaining that goal?
I like to plan ahead. Let's say this is a goal where it's a set day and time. I'll make sure that I have everything set up to make sure that I am fully prepared in all aspects. That way I'm not going into it rushing, I'm not going into it anxious. I'm aware for the most part of what's ahead, to reach that goal. And I also just take things a day at a time. When I was younger, I would always focus on just reaching that end goal and why am I not there yet, and I would doubt myself a lot. But, now I realize that taking it a day at a time, you learn to appreciate the process, to achieve that goal. So I think now I take a step back and I really analyze things, whereas before I would kind of just want it then and now.
So how do you handle days in where it's an off day per se? You're not feeling 100% motivated, or you're just not feeling quite yourself, but you still have these goals that you have to obtain and achieve.
Right.
How do you go about overcoming those obstacles?
So originally that was very difficult for me because, you know, when I would feel like overwhelmed, I would shut down and I would kind of just not waste that day, but I would have a hard time bouncing back. Whereas now, over the past month or so, with your help, I journal daily, and I'm able to look back at those journals, you know, to see the days where I'm highly motivated and, you know, what specifically made me motivated. So now when I have those low days or those days that I have no energy, no motivation, I look back to that and I kind of reflect on it, and I realize that, you know, this is a part of the process. Like I chose that. I chose to take this route, and I know that there's going to be days, maybe weeks, maybe even months where it's suffering, but I'm prepared for it.
Let's backtrack a little bit about the loss of your grandfather and the journey that it took to get you where you are today. I know for a fact your grandfather was your rock, he was your anchor, he was the person you went to, so you had a solid bond. And I understand from my own personal experiences that losing that person who's your rock is it's tough and it's hard to process. And you were young, you were a teenager. So tell us how old you were and how did you go about overcoming the loss, which I can say you never overcome the loss, but how do you deal and accept losing such a significant person in your life into your day?
Right. Well, when I had lost my grandfather, I believe I was 13. He died September 10th, 2010. So, you know, at 13 years old, I definitely wasn't mature enough to process those emotions the way I believe I should have. You know, I didn't really have anyone to really go in depth and talk to me about how difficult it can be to lose someone as close as my grandfather. You know, my grandfather wasn't just like a grandpa that I would see once a year, twice a year. Like, I saw him every day. And he would always make sure that I felt good as a person, you know? So going from that, you know, one day to now he's completely gone the next day, it crushed me. And it crushed me for a few years, actually. You know, I found myself just kind of staying isolated in my room. I kind of wanted to avoid family, avoid friends, because I just didn't feel myself, and I didn't know how to explain to people what exactly I was feeling. So I just felt even more out of place, even more lost in myself and in my ways. And that pretty much lasted, that like fear of life and like fear of, you know, expressing my own feelings was stuck with me up until I want to say like close to 2 years ago. That's when I first got into therapy. You know, and my therapist and I were able to discuss ways and ways to kind of help the situation, to help myself, and to help become more accepting of, okay, he's passed, but at the same time, he's always still with me, you know? So what helps me now day to day is actually the signs that I see during the day. So this may sound odd to some people, and you know, some people believe in spirits and other people don't, but my grandfather passed at 3:30 in the morning, 3:33 in the morning. Ever since that day he passed, I've been seeing 333, the number 333, everywhere I go. Everywhere I go. No matter, you know, no matter what kind of day it is, if I'm having a bad day, a good day, I always see 333 somewhere. So,
And reminding you that he's with you.
exactly. And I believe that's, you know, that's true. I believe that he's really there.
So now, over the past 2 years that you've been able to cope and grieve and mourn his loss in a healthy way, how do you find that that has improved your ability to apply that in other aspects of your life?
I think it's helped me immensely because I'm aware that, you know, he's still watching over me. So what I try and do, the good that I try and do, is not only for myself, but, you know, for my grandfather as well. Because he always taught me kindness, he taught me generosity, he taught me humility, and I try and live by those daily, you know. So I always try and be the best person I could, and you know, I just kind of realize that what I do, you know, he's proud. So it leaves me at the end of the day, you know, feeling happy about myself and happy knowing that, you know, he's still watching me after all these years, and I could feel like he's still, you know, like he still loves me.
Absolutely. Let's touch base on mental wellness. So mental wellness can mean anything to different people. What does it mean to you, and what approach are you going to take heading into prep when dealing with mental wellness?
I think for me personally, you know, mental health, mental awareness is one of the most important things, because if your mental health isn't in check, you are not the person who you truly are or truly could be. I feel like a lot of people live with anxiety, live with fear, live with burden because they're not accepting of themselves. They're not truly aware of themselves because they're worried about an image that they portray, or they worry about what people think about them and things like that. And that really affects your thought process. That really affects the way you live your life. You live your life kind of like insecure. So I think, like I said, mental health is the most important thing to me because when I've worked on myself and when I've become aware of myself, it's changed my perspective on everything, on my day-to-day life, you know, on the relationships that I have with, let's say, you, or with my friends, or, you know, with acquaintances. I value time now. I cherish time now with people. And I don't know, I think it's very important, and I think people don't realize how important it is until they actually get the help that they need to get to that point. A lot of people are in doubt of, oh, you know, therapy it's just for people who have serious problems, and, you know, it's not good to let out all your feelings and all your thoughts. It's the exact opposite. You should allow yourself to be vulnerable, especially around a professional, because they're able to dig deep to your roots and figure out why you may be insecure or why you may have this issue or that issue. And once you can realize that yourself and accept it yourself, you're a completely different person in the best way possible, I believe.
I agree 100%. Let's change the direction of the interview for a little bit, and let's look more into the show and heading into prep. What excites you about heading into this prep and this show, and why?
I think what excites me the most is that, going back to, you know, kind of my mindset and the way that I am able to perceive things, I'm excited to go into this prep because I'm a lot more aware of myself. I'm a lot, you know, I feel like I've matured a lot, and I've gained discipline from my last show at least. So I feel a lot more confident going into this show, and I'm excited, you know, for just the day-to-day process. I'm excited to make sure that I have my meals in. I'm excited to make sure that I do my training properly. I'm excited for check-ins with my coach because I want to hear feedback. You know, I want to hear the critique. Before I didn't want to hear it, but now it's like I'm willing to accept it because I know that it's going to make me better. So I'm also aware that, you know, prep is going to get tough. It's going to be hard. There's going to be days, weeks where I struggle, but I definitely feel a lot more prepared for that. Whereas in the past, I would give up, or I'd have a, you know, cheat meal, or I'd binge. You know, now I feel like everything is in line for me now.
Talk to me a little bit about leading up to your first show that you did when you were 18, compared to this show. How is it different?
Completely different. You know, I was younger. I was my thought process was just way different. I had doubted myself a lot. I was dealing with, a crazy relationship at the time that happened to end 2 weeks before my competition. And I think around that time, a month out to 2 weeks out, a week out, your body isn't able, or your mind isn't able to handle a stress like that and into a relationship after, however many years or months it was. So that was a really hard time for me. But I think mainly because I wasn't aware of myself. Like, I wasn't aware of my mind and how to process things. So it was tough, but I've learned.
So now you're ready for redemption.
Ready for redemption.
A lot of
100%.
mental growth, emotional growth, maturity.
Yes.
So what message would you like to give the younger you? There's going to be younger yous watching this interview.
Right.
What message would you like to send to them about if they're interested in pursuing bodybuilding?
Bodybuilding specifically, I would let them know that, this is an amazing outlet for you. This is training, competing, preparation. Those are all ways to improve yourself as a person, not just your physique, but as a person. If you ever have problems where, you feel like you can't deal with it, you always have the gym there. You can always train, there's amazing benefits to training. It releases these endorphins, and these chemicals and these receptors in your body that make you feel like you're not, like you have a good well-being. And just to, have patience too. I want them to know that patience is definitely key with something like this. And to not rush things, and just to make sure that you're doing things smart. That's what I have to say.
Who are your, I guess, mentors or idols in this sport that you look up to and you aspire something about them, whether it's their dedication, their discipline?
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously when you make this sport your career, there's a lot of sacrifice that's involved in it.
Right.
So who can you name that are a few people that you've admired and why?
I would have to say Big Ramy is definitely one of my favorites. Just because, he's been critiqued, very, very harshly at times, but yet he still came back to win the Olympia. I have to say someone like Guy Cisternino. His work ethic is insane, and it's something that I admire. My brother, for sure, because I see him day to day, and I can see the process. I can see what he does in a day and how much discipline it takes, and how he's always focused on the goal. He's never complains. He just does what he has to do, and he does it amazingly, and that's why he looks phenomenal. If there's one more person, I would probably have to say Breon Ansley, Classic Physique. The way he is as a person, I definitely admire. He's a very respected guy. He's a humble guy. But you can tell when he speaks that he's himself. And he tries to be engaged with, in the gym and like in the community. He tries to be engaged with his fans and things like that. And I think giving back as a pro is something that, that I admire as well. Giving back to the people. So those are the bodybuilders that I admire the most.
So in closing, you're going to be watching this as you're going through prep. I think it's important that you send yourself a message, a reminder that you can go back to and watch. What would you like that message to be to yourself?
Don't give in to the negativity. Don't give in to the negativity. Don't give in to, the negative thoughts that your mind may bring. and just be focused on that end goal. You know, set those short goals for yourself. You know, either day by day, week by week. That way, when you reach that final goal, you know it's not something that's extremely drastic because it's always been planned out.
So in second closing, what would you like to say to the people that are watching this?
I would like to say that I'm very grateful for them. I'm very grateful for you guys for taking the time to watch my content and to kind of understand who I am a little bit more as a person and as an athlete. I also would like for these people who follow to give me feedback, that I am aware that no feedback is really going to be negative to me. So any kind of help, any kind of support, whether it be watching, commenting, you know, liking the video, sharing it, it would be greatly appreciated, because I would like to get this message out to more people.
Wonderful. All right.
That's it.
That concludes it.
That concludes it.